A new transparency report by the National Security Agency says the number of Americans unmasked under the foreign surveillance law is up by 75%. Now, the NSA admitted in its annual report that nearly 17,000 residents or corporations had their identities revealed to other government agencies. Now, normally these names are redacted to protect Americans or prevent unmasking from being used for political purposes or leaks. Now, but this is a story that has gotten a lot of attention over the past few years after President Trump and Republicans accused the Obama administration of unmasking their names for political gain. Now, to discuss this information and to learn more about the NSA unmasking program, we turn to investigative journalist Ben Swann. Ben, thanks for joining us. And I just have to ask the obvious. Is there a chance that everyday Americans' names were unmasked and they might never know it?
Oh, absolutely. There's a chance that could happen. In fact, when you're talking about a 75% increase, you're talking about that process happening over the course of just 1 year. 75% increase in just 1 year of U.S. citizens' names being unmasked by federal agencies and the NSA specifically, two federal agencies, as part of this FISA program. Now, remember, all of this is supposed to be happening under FISA surveillance, meaning foreign intelligence surveillance that's taking place here. When the NSA is monitoring spies in other countries, and if U.S. citizens' names come up, they are masked in those reports. The problem is we don't know in what context those names are being used, how they're being used. But we do have the accusations, as you mentioned in the past, that Republicans have made and President Trump himself has made, that members of his transition team were actually had their names unmasked for political purposes. Why? Because when you suddenly pop up someone's name and say, well, you were being talked about by Russians, you were being talked about by Venezuelans, all of a sudden you begin to smear those people without giving any context as to what was being said about these individuals.
Ben, and this is what scares me even more today than it would per se 30 years ago. We have this thing called the internet and social media, and it is a small world after all. So who knows who follows who or who actually reads a tweet, and they might want somebody who might be being surveilled might just mention, well, I read this person's tweet, and that person might never know, and automatically then they're connected to that government or to that person of the residency. This is kind of scary. So why do you think the increase has happened this year compared to previous years?
Well, and that's a big question, and I don't think we actually know the answer to that yet. Why has a number of names being unmasked increased so dramatically? Because a 75% increase is an incredibly dramatic increase. I think we don't know the answer to that. Now, one of the things I think is curious about all this is the fact that the NSA actually got on a call with reporters to discuss this and talk about it, which indicates that it might be similar to the situation we saw back in 2011, 2012, when the IRS at that point got on a call with reporters and outed itself for having actually been targeting conservative groups through the IRS. And so it smells similar to that kind of situation where all of a sudden there's a little bit of damage control happening. The NSA is coming forward and saying, yeah, we actually had this increase. It's a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. We're just doing our jobs. It makes me wonder whether there is a second shoe to drop here, and we find out why federal agencies have been given so many names, such an increase, about 17,000 names of U.S. citizens who have been caught up in these conversations. And as you said, if somebody on one of these calls says, oh, I read a tweet came from Scottie Nell Hughes. Oh, Scottie Nell Hughes' name is now being used by spies in another country, even though you have no connection to them whatsoever. I think there are a lot of questions about how this is being used.
Well, and I think we learned a lot of this in the WikiLeaks leak, that names, I'm sure your name was in there. My name was in there several times just by people watching TV and saying, oh, I watched this show, I watched this segment, and all of a sudden they're pulled into this. So can Americans do anything at all to see if their names were unmasked at some point, or do they just kind of have to wait and see if somebody knocks on their door or sends them an email?
No, there's really nothing you can do at this point. And one of the reasons that you can't do anything is because the documents in which these names are included, number one, they're secret documents to begin with. FISA warrants are completely secret, with secret judges and secret proceedings that take place. Number two, they are classified documents, and the names are being unredacted in those classified documents, but the documents themselves, for the most part, are still classified. So there's not much that you can do about it.
Well, it's interesting because we know today it might be secret and classified. Who knows what tomorrow might hold for us. Thank you, Ben, for covering this.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.